Sawubona. Yes. I saw Benito in downtown Little Rock the other day, and he walked up to me and was like, Sawubona. I'm like, yes, for the Zulu tribal greeting, which means hello on its face. But when we dig a little deeper, it means we see y'all. That we invite you into this space to be the whole of who you are as you stand on the shoulders of all of the people who came before you in your lineage. And we welcome you into this space so that you can be free. You are liberated. You are willing. You are able to join us in the conversation, however it feeds your soul. This is the space for you. So thank you for joining us for the Good Fight. The Good Fight is an outgrowth of Just Talk Consulting. It is my own consulting firm where we really do believe that every change that we need to affect, every positive change that we need to affect in this world happens through conversation. So if we could just gather people together for strategic, open, honest, transparent, vulnerable conversation, we can change this world overnight. And we've got to believe that. Hey, Susanna, Sawubona. Lo, it's good to see you. Hotel. I was so worried about you, Lo, but now I had my phone ready. I was gonna text you if you had not shown up on this morning. I was gonna text you and see what was going on. I was looking for a Bible, so Arve says, since I said Sawubona, yay, Bo Sawubona. Yes, for the Sawubona. I accept the invitation to receive you into this spirit of oneness. And so we are here because of Just Talk Consulting, where we believe that we can have these conversations that are transformational, not interested in the transaction, but in the transformation of our time together. And if this is your first time joining us, we welcome you. Welcome, welcome, welcome into this space. There are ways that you can engage with the Good Fight every single time you show up. One of the ways is to see yourself reflected in a mirror. I realize I've been doing this when I was talking about a mirror. This is actually the sign for mirror. This is like, I see you. I want you to know that I got eyes on you. I'm watching you. I see you. I'm paying attention to you. But this is a mirror, like the reflection. Like I see me. This is the mirror. So one of the ways that you can engage is to see yourself. I've been talking about this for the last 3 days. We have to have a willingness to see ourselves. Remember, I talked about this exercise that we could do where we write down what are the things that we are attracted to about ourselves and what are the things that make us less attractive, and to have that conversation internally, and then to also invite other people into that conversation. How do you see you? And how do other people see you? And what's the disconnect? And how do you bridge that gap? And so one of the ways that you can engage is to see yourself reflected in the mirror so you have an ouch moment. But another way is to see yourself reflected in a mirror to where you say, yes, I know what that's like. I feel that I've been there. I've done that. Another way you can engages the Good Fight is to look through a window. So somebody else's story is centered in this space. You don't have to understand it. One of the things I push back against in conversations with other folks is when they say, well, I'll never know what it's like to be Black. Ain't nobody expecting you to know what it's like to be Black if you are not Black. That is not even a realistic expectation. That should not even be part of the conversation. What we're saying is, are you willing to hear the story, to give yourself as a gift to the storytelling event so that you can receive what the person is trying to tell you about their lives, not asking you to understand it, to believe it, not asking you to have any accountability about it, but to hear it on a cellular level. You can hear it and then decide you don't believe it. That's what a lot of people do anyway. But if you are listening with conscious ears, then you are more likely to say, you know what, let me give space to this. And that's what we're asking you to do. Hey, I'll tell my mama you said, hey, look, she is in Florida and she is not studying me. She got 2 sons, 2 daughters-in-law. She's got 3 grandchildren, and she's got 3 great-grandchildren, and she got 2 dogs. And if you think she's thinking about me by myself over here, she She not stunned me. A third way that you can engage with a good fight is to walk through a door. So beyond this moment, and you all do this with me all the time. I love it. You will send me a TikTok. You will send me an article. You will send me a message, Susanna. And say, look, you said blah blah blah, but how about blah blah blah? And I really appreciate the continual conversation beyond this space. And then you can also do just as you're doing now. You can comment right here. StreamYard allows me the opportunity to show your comments on the screen so that everybody can see them. I'm getting cold. My head. I'm just gonna pick up the first hat I see. To give us an opportunity to continue the conversation beyond this moment. And StreamYard lets us see the comments, and I really like that about this platform. So here is where we are on tonight as we talk about the topic, and the topic is why scare me. That's the topic. Why scare me? And it's coming from Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. And I just want to see what I've been reading from. I've been reading from the New International Version of the Bible. So I can pull that one because I did not put it up on the screen for us on tonight. But I want us to think about fear, because I am scared. Yeah, I'm gonna tell y'all why I'm scared. I have no problems telling y'all what's going on in my life, being, an open book for anyone who's willing to engage in the conversation. It's just who I am, I'm unapologetic about it. I'm trying to figure out where that line is coming from. And so here's what happened. So I don't know how many of you know that I am hard of hearing. So I've got, see this hearing aid? This goes behind my ear. I've got bilateral hearing aids, which means I've got one in both ears. And so I have to have them in order to hear on the same level that you hear. The hearing aids do not allow me to, doesn't change my situation. So I will never, ever regain the hearing that I've lost. As a matter of fact, it is highly likely that my hearing is going to diminish even more. So what the hearing aids do is they offer me the amplification so that I can hear on the same level that you are hearing in terms of volume. That's what, and I say you, I'm talking about people who we call hearing, people who do not have a hearing deficiency. And so I'm dependent on my hearing aids to communicate more effectively. If I don't have my hearing aids, I can still communicate because I'm not deaf, not yet, but it helps me tremendously to have my hearing aids. And so they are prized possessions for me. Once I finally accepted the fact that I had to have them, hearing aid, ASL, American Sign Language for accept. Once I accepted that I had to have them, then they became a vital part of my life. And because they were so vital to my life, there was this little mechanism that you could put on the edge of your hearing aid that would that would sit right in the bed of your ear to keep your hearing aid in place. And so I wanted to make sure that I never lost my hearing aid, number one, because they're so expensive. Don't get me started. I'm not going to talk about healthcare. 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 But they are so expensive that I felt like I couldn't afford to lose them because my dad paid for the first pair. I don't know if you have a pair like I have a pair. It's like, look, we're not getting ready to keep replacing this. You're going to have to figure something out. And so my first pair my dad bought, I couldn't afford them. I simply could not at the time. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted that I forgot what you call it, but it's a piece that holds it in place. And then I use that all the time so that I can make sure that I did not, that my hearing aids were stable, they were functioning, and I could be my very best self because I didn't have to keep saying, huh. And because I know people get tired of you saying, huh, all the time, then I was not, I wouldn't disengage, because when I realized that people would get tired of me saying huh all the time, I would just stop saying what you say, and then I would no longer hear, and now I'm not participating in the conversation. But I was younger then. Now I don't care. I'll be like, what did you just say? What was the last thing you said? Can you say that again? Can you repeat that? I don't mind doing that. And so, as a person who wears these hearing aids, I got them through Bell Tone. And one of the services, one of the benefits of getting my hearing aids through Bell Tone, and it might be like this with other places, I don't know, I just know Bell Tone, is that I have a lifelong warranty. Well, they are always cleaned at the appropriate time. Anytime they're clean, any parts that need to be fixed, they can fix them depending on the part. But just the normal common parts that are just that are overused just because of they are damaged just because you're using them on a regular basis, they will replace those free of charge. So it's a pretty good for, especially for the price that you pay for the hearing aids. And then remember, I got 2 of them. It's a pretty good deal. And so I go in every, whatever every 3 months, I don't know, every 2 months, every 3 months to get them clean. I'm not sure. But I am depending on the audiologist. Well, I don't think they're called audiologists, the hearing expert, the hearing technician. I'm depending on them to do right by me concerning my hearing aids, because I don't know what's best for me. I'm depending on you because you are the expert. Hey, Miss Noita, I see you. And so I go into so another reason that I want to wear my hearing aids all the time is because even though I cannot regain the hearing that I've lost, what I can do is continue to tickle those nerves that are inside of our ears so that they are bright and they are alert and they stay and they remain active. It's kind of like that saying where if you don't use it, you lose it. So if I do not wear my hearing aids, I have nothing within my body right now to stimulate those nerve endings so that I can hear to the best of my ability as Denise, one with a hearing deficiency. So those are reasons. 1, because they're expensive. 2, because it helps me hear to the very best of my ability, that it's important for me to have my hearing aids on every single day. And so this is important to my life because it helps me be an effective communicator and it helps me engage, right? Like one of the ways we feel engaged in a conversation is to be heard and to be able to hear and to follow the conversation. Those of us who are deaf, we do that through sign language. But for those of us who are hearing, we use our voices. So here I am going through this situation with my hearing aids where I'm driving down the street. I'm en route from Louisiana to Arkansas. And all of a sudden, I hear this like static in my left ear. Is static, and then it like goes dead. I mean, like nothing. I'm like, wait, what? That had never happened to me before, so I was not sure. So here I am, that my hearing aids are smart. So I'm getting on my phone and I'm trying to connect. I'm trying to wait till I get home so I can set them up with their rechargeable. I have a little rechargeable case that I put them in every night. So I'm trying to figure out all the things that I can do because I really need to be able to hear. So how can I troubleshoot this so that I can get back on track? I call the audiologist. I call them audiologists. I call the audiologist and I'm like, look, something's going on. He was like, okay, just come in. He's like, he asked me a couple of questions, like, come in tomorrow. We got a spot open 9:00. Come in tomorrow. We'll fix it. Okay. Go in the next day, 9:00 in the morning. He fixes it. He said it was the receiver that was out. It just went out. No big deal. It happens all the time. Here you go. You're good. You're ready. I say, thank you. I'm out the door in 15 minutes. 3 days later, I want to say 2 or 3 days later, I am on my way to Minnesota when I get to the airport and my right ear hearing aid goes out. And I'm like, wait, what? So now I'm not as upset as I was at first because I've like, oh, okay, the receiver must be out. But I'm like, isn't this weird for the receiver to go out 2 or 3 days later, the right receiver to go out from the 2 or 3 days after the left receiver goes out. So I call the audiologist and I say, my right hearing aid went out. And he said, oh, yes. I saw that it was going out when you were here the other day, but I wanted to see how long it would last. So I thought I would just leave it alone and wait until it went out and you could come back in and get it fixed. I said, you did what now? So at this point, I am 38 hot because I'm on my way to Minnesota. I cannot hear as effectively out of one of my ears. I'm about to be amongst strangers having conversation. We're going to be in conferences and meetings and dialogues. And I'm just like, what? I am so mad right now. I'm talking to my traveling partner and I'm like, I cannot believe I'm going to be gone for 4 days. And I don't have a hearing aid. This is unacceptable. So in my mind, I'm already firing off this letter that I'm going to write to him about how poor of an audiologist he is. And my friend, my traveling partner says, you may not have to wait 4 days. Surely they have a hearing, because she didn't know. Says, surely they have a hearing place in Minnesota. Of course they do. So I look up Minnesota, call them on the phone. They're like, yes, you can come in the morning. You should be here at 7 o'clock. Is Jesus awake at 7 o'clock? Okay, so I got a 7 o'clock appointment in Minnesota for the new audiologist that I've never seen before. He doesn't know anything about me. He doesn't have my records, but I show up. When I show up, he starts asking me questions that my present audiologist has never asked me before. Asking me questions. He wants to see, how do I put my hearing aids in? He wants to see how I put them in, how I take them out, and he's just watching me. After he watches me, he says, I feel like there is my number one concern is how you have to put the hearing aids in because of this piece that you have to lock them in place. I know that it is important for you to lock your hearing aids in place, but it is also causing you to have a problem with your receiver, and it's what's causing your receiver to break. So I want you to think about, when you get back home, choosing not to use this locking mechanism anymore, because it is affecting the way that you insert your hearing aids and the quality of your hearing aids, because you keep breaking the receiver because of how you're putting them in. So I say, well, if it's better let's just try it. So we take the locking mechanisms off, and he watches me put them in just like that. I'm like, hey, hey, I didn't know that. What? I felt like a new person because I have a new way of wearing my hearing aids. But then he goes on to say, I'd really feel better if we put the locking mechanism back on, because if you don't have it on, it's possible that you're going to lose your hearing aid, because the purpose of the locking mechanism is to secure it, to keep it in place. If you take that off, it is highly likely that you are going to be just doing your regular order of business, and your hearing aid is going to fall out of your ear, and you're not going to know it, and you're going to lose it. And I said, wait, what? How? I wouldn't, you're saying I wouldn't feel it coming out of my ear? He said, no. I said, you don't think I would feel it coming from behind my ear? He said, no, it is possible that you will have no idea that you have lost your hearing aid until you are so far away from it that you can no longer find it. So I don't want you to leave out of here without the locking mechanism, because I'm worried that you're going to lose them. And if you lose them, then I don't want that to happen on my watch. So basically, he was telling me to be careful, because he didn't want, since he was a new person, he's not my normal audiologist, he didn't want to do anything differently because I was already under somebody else's care. So I told him, I see what you're doing. I said, you're worried that if I lose my hearing aid, I'm going to blame it on you, and I'm going to seek some kind of recompense from you. And you don't want to be the one that's on the receiving end of that. I said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to make the decision not to put the locking mechanism on again. And I'm not, because I just felt better when I took it off. I felt better. I'm not going to do it. And don't worry, Are you recording me? Do you need me to record this? I will not file a suit against you if I lose my hearing aid. Hey, Charlotte. They are expensive to replace for even. Listen, let me tell you how expensive these hearing aids are. When I went in to price them, because I did lose a pair, I lost a pair. I left them somewhere. I lost a pair. So I went in to price them. This is what he said. Well, we've got the Mercedes level of hearing aids, and we've got the Toyota level of hearing aids, and we've got just I'm just driving a car trying to get from point A to B level of hearing aids. Which would you like to consider? I said, what? So I'm like, I don't think I need the Mercedes because there's a whole bunch of bells and whistles on that. I definitely don't want I just want to get to point A from point A to point B. Like that sounds like, I don't know. So let's talk about the Toyota. And when I tell you that the price of these hearing aids, both of them, is likened to a mini grant. People that write mini grants, it's less than 20,000, but it's more than 5,000. Like these hearing aids cost that much. They are so expensive, which is another reason why I said I wanted that locking mechanism, because I'm trying to keep them in place, because I literally cannot afford to spend this much money on hearing aids that have been lost. So the man says, I really want you to keep this locking mechanism in place. I don't want to be the one responsible when you lose your hearing aid. I tell him I'll be accountable, fully accountable. I got it. Don't worry. Thank you very much. And I go on about my business. But here's the thing. Even though I'm living in a much better world now that I do not have the locking mechanism in place, my hearing aids are so much easier for me to insert. I'm really loving my life with these hearing aids. They feel like a brand new pair. I feel like it's a brand new day, and I'm super excited, but I'm scared all the time. Once he planted the seed that it is possible for me to lose this hearing aid without even knowing it, because it can just fall out of my ear every 5 minutes, it feels like. It's not really every 5 minutes, but every 5 minutes, it feels like I am checking to make sure. I'm checking to make sure I have it. I'm checking to make sure it's in. And so I can't really fully give myself over to enjoy my day, because I'm wondering, have I lost my hearing aid? Have I lost my hearing aid? Is it still here? Is it still here? And so I'm scared, y'all. There's this fear that has been instilled in me because I do not want to lose my hearing aid for all these reasons. But number one, I don't want to pay for another. I don't even want to pay for one, let alone two, because I just got this pair. So Charlotte says, do you have FSA? I don't have FSA. But what I know, but hearing aids are not covered under any insurance plan. So I don't know if FSA would matter, because don't let me talk about healthcare. 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 Insurance doesn't usually cover hearing aids. And in case you have an insurance that does, it's the kind of hearing aid where you have, it's not smart. The technology is not up to date. It packs your ear. It doesn't allow the hearing aids don't allow your ears to breathe. Like it's a whole, oh, so you said here they are. You don't live in Arkansas. You don't live in Arkansas, girl. You live in Texas. But I don't mind double checking my insurance to make sure, since I do have a different kind of insurance now. But usually that has been the conversation that, for me, that hearing aids are not covered under my insurance plan. And so I'm walking around scared because I don't want to lose my hearing aids. And that is what has brought me to this conversation tonight about asking the question for our topic is, why scare me? Like, what was the point of him, of the audiologist, instilling this kind of, because it wasn't just like, well, I want you to be careful. It wasn't that. It wasn't that because you're doing something new, I want you to pay attention to how it feels. I want you to get used to what it feels like when they are inside of your ear, so that if you begin to feel something differently, you can say, hey, let me just check, because I feel a difference in my body as it relates to my hearing. That wasn't the conversation. The conversation was, you're gonna lose this, and if you lose it, then you go, I don't want to be the one responsible for you losing it. And if you lose, you're not gonna know that you lost it. You're not gonna be able to find it. I mean, it was all of this. The tenor of his voice changed, the energy in his body changed. He wanted to make sure that I did not make any decision with him that I did not make with my audiologist, because he wanted to be hands off. He wanted not to be responsible for whatever may happen with me choosing this decision not to have the locking mechanism for my hearing aids. So I am trying very hard every day to uproot this fear. Why should I be afraid? Like, if I lose the hearing aids, I'm going to lose them. I've lost one. One time I just lost one. One time I lost a pair. And so now I'm on my third loss. This is my third time after having lost hearing aids. I'm on my third time. So life goes on. I end up paying for them some kind of way. It's not like we haven't been down this road before. It's not like there's no way of escape. We can get through it. But I'm scared. And when I began to think about that, I was like, what? I wanted to find a verse from scripture, because I always want to take a real life experience and apply it to our faith, because that's the point of this conversation, is at the intersection of faith and social justice. How are we living into our faith? And so when I think about us and the way we've been indoctrinated around faith, that is what guides how we operate in our faith. And many of us may need to uproot this indoctrination, because it's rooted in something more than faith. It's rooted in something more than conviction. It's rooted in something more than spirituality. It's rooted in something more than religion. Many of us are operating according to our faith the same way I'm operating according to my hearing aids, out of fear. And fear of what? What are we afraid of? And so I wanted to read Proverbs chapter 1. Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. I want to read that into our hearing for the sake of this conversation, because I want to ask you about fear as it relates to how you live a faithful life. And if your fear plays a role in your relationship with others, your fear of your faith plays a role in your relationship with other people. Now, these proverbs are supposed to, it'll tell you right here. It'll tell you right here what the proverbs are. So hear these words from Proverbs chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. The Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel, for gaining wisdom and instruction, for understanding words of insight, for receiving instruction in prudent behavior, doing what is right and just and fair, for giving prudence to those who are simple, knowledge and discretion to the young. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance, for understanding parables and proverbs, the sayings and riddles of the wise. Here's the key point. Here's the key verse, verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So the first 6 verses are about Solomon saying, here's the reason why you need these proverbs. You need these proverbs because they give you instruction, they give you guidance, they help you be wise, they help you learn, they help you navigate the things that you need to navigate in order to be your most faithful self. So this is necessary to your life if you are going to live by faith, to make sure that you add the proverbs to your canon of books that you read, you make sure that you are paying attention to them and you are honoring them and that you are celebrating them in your mind and in your body and in your soul and in your spirit, because they are going to help you get what you need to know about your relationship with God. He spends the first 6 verses talking about that: wisdom, instruction, understanding, receiving, all of this. And then he gets to verse 7 and says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So my first question is, understanding this word fear. When we have conversations, we have to make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as the language is concerned. So when I saw this word fear, immediately I thought about the fear that I was thinking about. This fear that is an emotional response. Every day I'm having an emotional response to this fear that was planted by my audiologist, by the audiologist, that says you're going to lose this hearing aid. It's like, basically, it's like it was prophesied. You are going to lose this hearing aid. That's how he made me feel. So now I'm forever checking. All day long, y'all, you got to hear me. All day long, I am checking to make sure that my hearing aids are in place. And so when I thought about this word fear, the first thing I said is this is an emotional response that we are having to the God that we say is ours. The God that we say that I don't want to use the word serve anymore, y'all. I don't want to say this is the God that we serve. That's just not landing well on my ears anymore. It just doesn't feel right coming out of my mouth anymore. I want to say this is the God with whom we have a covenant, because the covenant that we have, the promise of relationship that we get from God, is when God says, I am yours and you are mine. Together we are in a relationship. Together we are living the spirit of Sawubona. We are living the spirit of connection. We are living the spirit of oneness. That is who we are in relationship with God. I'm not serving you. I'm not your servant. I'm not your slave. You're not my master. We are in relationship together so that we can live and move and have our being. That's what it was in whom we live and move and breathe, in whom we breathe, live and breathe and have our being. That this relationship gives me life. This relationship that I have with God inspires me and motivates me. It pours into me. It feeds me. And in turn, I praise and I give honor and I celebrate the relationship, not the personality of Jesus, but I celebrate this oneness with the universe that reminds me of how much power I have to do the things that I've been called to do, which is set God's people free. That is what I am called to do. And that is why I am here. And God gives me the power. God is with me, is present with me to make sure that that happens in my context, with my gifts and the graces that I have received. So when I thought about this word fear and the fear of the Lord, thinking about it as an emotional response, I said, isn't it true? I'm asking the question, isn't it true that if we really tell the truth, if we really tell a more accurate story of our relationship with God, isn't it true that many of us grew up being scared of God? That God was given to us as someone who's always watching over us to check and make sure that we are doing the right thing so that we don't end up going to hell, but that heaven will be our home because we're too scared for it not to be. I want to make sure I go to church every Sunday. I want to make sure I give my tithes. I need to read my Bible. I need to pray every day, because if I don't, and what's going to happen if you don't? What God going to do? I didn't think about this on this level until just now when I was saying God is monitoring us, making sure we do the right thing. It started reminding me of Santa Claus, where he's making a list and he's checking it twice. He's gonna find out if you naughty or nice. To me, we've applied that same kind of understanding to God. And here Connie is saying, yeah, many of us have grown up scared of God because of the way God was given to us, the way my hearing aids were given to me. I'm gonna let you do this, but you need to know you gonna mess up. You're going to lose this hearing aid. You're going to be in trouble. You're going to have to spend this money. And I don't want you saying it's my fault because I tried to tell you. And so here is this God Here's this God that we have that I'm giving to you. I'm teaching this God to you, and I teach this God in a way that says, you better do right or else. Lo says, I am a conqueror and not a vicon. For fear and courage cannot occupy the same space in one's body and psyche. Faith without works is dead. Oh, a victim. I am a conqueror and not a victim. Okay, I thought you were teaching us another word because you be on some most stuff teaching us all these words. I am a conqueror and not a victim. For fear and courage cannot occupy the same space in one's body and psyche. Faith without works is dead. Oh, let me put this up here so people can see. And that word is victim, victim. I don't know about that though, Lo. When I think back to the Woman King, and I was watching that movie, and they were training their bodies to be weapons of warfare because they knew that they were trying to regain they were trying to recapture the bodies of their community members so that they could free them, liberate them from the enslavement that their own people had participated in. So I am training my body to be a weapon of mass destruction as I go into battle. But it's also true that I'm scared that I'm going to die. Don't get me wrong. I'm willing to die, but I don't really want to. I'm hoping to make it out alive, because when we watch the film, when people died, they would take they would put a little body on them. They had this ritual that they would do, and they would cry over those bodies. And they would mourn those bodies, because even though death is a part of the process, I really hope that I come home alive. So even though I'm facing my fear, I'm still scared. Would you think that it's possible for this fear and this courage to occupy the same space? That's just like me. I say all the time, I'm gonna put my body on the line. I'm going to fight to the death for my people. And if it means that I die, then I die. I say it all the time. And I put myself in harm's way with my mouth all the time. But if you ask me, am I scared to die? If I'm like when a cop gets behind me and turns on the lights, I'm not going to lie and say that there's not this flip-flop in my stomach. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to say, I'm not, when I pull over, it doesn't mean that I'm just going to be like, oh, please. That's not what I mean. But I mean, there's this response that I have because I don't want this to be the moment that I lose my life. But if it has to be, then I'm okay with that. So I'm just challenging that. So here is Arve, Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. That's one of the verses I have written down. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. So what do we mean by this word fear? Are we talking about the fear that is the emotional response that happens in our body that's triggered by our amygdala? That part of our brain that triggers the fight or flight. Something happens and we get scared. The first thing our body is going to decide. It makes a split decision. Either we're going to fight or we're getting out of here. So one or the other is going to happen. You're not even paying attention to it. You're not even thinking about it. Your body reacts instantaneously because that's the beauty of how we were created. So what Lo offers is that at the time of danger, fear takes a back seat to your situation. You know what? I can agree with that. Y'all, let me tell you this story. My brother Derek was about 6 or 7 years old, which meant he was an only child because, he must have been 6. Now, my mama wasn't pregnant. He was probably 5 years old. And he and my mama were coming back home from shopping because my mama used to she still loves to shop. And they were pulling up in the driveway, and Derek, my mama got out on her side and Derek got out on his side, and he was coming around the back of the car in order to come on her side to go into the house. I don't know why he was coming around the back of the car. I don't know if that's what she taught him. I just know that this is the story. As he began to come around the back of the car began to roll back. And so if the car continued to roll back, it was going to roll over my brother. So my mother, with every ounce of strength she had in that moment, was holding this car in place. She was keeping it from rolling back. And she was saying, "Run, Derek, run, Derek." And my brother shot across the back of the car, and just in time for my mama to no longer be able to hold it. And the car rolled on back and his life was spared. So I can believe you when you say in that moment, I'm sure she feared for her son's life, but that wasn't her main. Her fear is not what overtook her. She was like, I got to save him, right? So my strength is what takes center space. My strength to be able to hold this car, that's what I'm focused on. I'll be scared later. So I can see it from that perspective for sure. And so Arve says, I think in this case, fear means respect. Yeah, I think in this case, fear means respect. I absolutely think that it means respect. No doubt in my mind that it means respect. But is that what we are taught? Are we taught that it means that we are supposed to honor and stand in awe of God? Or are we worried about what God is going to do for us? Because I'm going to suggest that if we were taught that it meant respect, then why are we so worried all the time about sinning? If my responsibility, I don't want to say my job, if part of this relationship that I have, this covenant relationship that I have with God, if part of it is me respecting and standing in awe of who God is, then would I be worried about going to hell? No, it was a threat. And that is where I'm trying to go with this conversation. Because if we really talk, because let me tell y'all something. I don't just stand in awe of God. Like, let me just tell you when I do stand in awe of God, then I'll finish the statement I was about to make. There are two things that happen in my life. And every time they happen, I stand in awe of God. One is to see a pregnant woman. When I think about this human that's on the inside of the pregnant person, I shouldn't say woman, the pregnant person, when I see this, when I realize and I recognize that they are carrying a human that's going to be released from their bodies with personality and life and just, emotions, like this full human just in its own little form as it grows and develops into who it's been created to be. I stand in awe of man cannot do that. Another time that I stand in awe of God is when I see a bird's nest, because I'm trying to figure out who was holding these twigs in place while the bird was going to come and create the nest. Now you come in one twig at a time. And have you seen a nest, how intricate it is? Like how are y'all able? Do y'all work in a group? Do y'all assign? You hold this twig, I'm gonna go get another one. You hold it there. While I just stand in awe of that. I'm just amazed and fascinated. And of course, there are other things that can cause us to be awestruck by God. But those are the two things that every time I see them, I have to pause for a moment because I'm mesmerized at how this is possible. I also stand in awe, though, of the system of white inhumanity. When I think about the systems that we are fighting, we were having a conversation last night about food apartheid and food deserts. Here, we were focusing the conversation locally, but we know that we are experiencing this all over the country. This lack of access to nutritional justice, right? Like we are not. We are experiencing this dehumanization in our bodies because we cannot get to the food that we need that's fresh and that's affordable and that's available in an area where we live. We were talking about this, and this man asked me, so do you think that would you consider yourself an expert on food. And I don't know what he was thinking in his mind, and I don't know what motivated him to ask the question, but that's how I heard it. That may not have been how he said it, but that's how I heard it. So, are you an expert on food? And I said, no, I don't consider myself to be an expert on food at all. What I consider myself to be is an expert on Blackness. And when I think about the Black experience, I cannot just talk about food. I can't just talk about voter suppression. I've got to talk about food. I've got to talk about transportation. I've got to talk about housing. I've got to talk about healthcare. I've got to talk about education. I've got to talk about the environment. I've got to talk about every aspect of my life that is impacted by this system of white inhumanity. I can't just focus on one thing because I'm standing in awe of how we got here, how we were so misguided to believe that we could own human bodies as personal property that would lead us to this space now where the disparities that we are experiencing are direct results of those decisions. So no, I'm not an expert on food, but I'm an expert on my life, which requires that I pay attention to this system. And this system sometimes is so overwhelming, it's so big, I just stand in awe. Lord have mercy, what have we done to each other? So Lo says, be leery of the word expert. Why? Knowledgeable, yes. Leery of the word expert. I think the way that I'm using the word expert is not to set myself over and above anyone else, but generally speaking, when in these spaces, I've been called to lead the space. And I think that's why we're referring to it as an expert, because I'm the one in this moment that's guiding and facilitating this conversation. But the way I lead conversations and facilitate conversations, I say, I am open to pushback, questions, challenges, like all of this conversation, because I don't think that I know everything. I don't present myself in that way, but I'm sure that there are people who do. And so I receive the comment in the spirit in which it is given. And so I'm asking us to consider whether or not we have whether or not one of the things that motivates us in our faith is fear of doing wrong in God's sight, because I know some of us have gotten over the fact of worrying about whether or not we've done wrong in a human sight. Like, we're over that. But we're still worried that God may not be pleased with us. We're still worried that we might make a mistake. We still worry that we are sinners who are only saved by grace. We still wake up every day asking God to keep us. What is the prayer that they taught us to pray? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. And so it's this concern that we have every day that we're gonna, and because I don't think it's just make a mistake. I think it's beyond that. The temptation and the evil, it's beyond that. Is I don't want to mess this up. I want to make sure that I get it right. I want to make sure that I dot every T and cross every dot every I and cross every T, so that I'm the very best human that I can be, that I'm an expert in Christianity. And this goes back to what Lo is saying, but that should not be our goal, to be the expert. We want to know what it means to be let's be knowledgeable. Let's know what it means to be in covenant relationship with God. But these eggshells that I'm walking on, that is not what I'm called to do. I should not be afraid that I'm going to make a mistake that lands me in hell, that lands me as unforgiven and in need of forgiveness, that lands me in the pastor's office talking about I need counseling because I need to be redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. I'm wondering, I'm really posing the question, are we operating out of fear in our relationship with God? And if we are, what are we afraid of? And if we say that it is sin, we keep having this same conversation that Jesus bore our sins on the cross. What sins are we talking about? And so I don't want to talk about the individual sins. When you start talking about smoking and drinking, wearing pants, those kinds of things. But I do want to talk about the crimes against humanity that I would consider to be a sin. So when you start talking about violence, absolutely, let's call that sin. for sure. And violence in all of its forms. So all of these systems that I'm talking about, violence. When we put our hands on each other, violence. When we kill each other, violence. Yes, let's talk about and categorize that as sin. But I don't want to talk about anybody smoking and you telling me that's a sin. I don't want to talk about anybody who's not going to church and that's a sin. I don't want to talk about anybody who's loving whoever it is that they love and we say that's a sin. I'm talking about the societal sins that we commit as humans against each other that I know God ain't had no part in when God was creating us. God didn't create us to be this way. So Lo says, as the, I think I've heard you say this name before, Kemet, you practice the law of affirmation. The law of affirmation. I think we even have started doing that. I don't know how many of us still do. You know how we come up with these, what you call them, New Year's resolutions, that I'm going to affirm myself. And so I'll write these affirmations. I've written some before. They probably in one of these journals. If I just pull out one of these journals where we affirm ourselves, and we get on these calls with other people and we want to affirm each other. We get into these groups where we are at the table. We're sitting down as in affinity groups, as Black women or as Black men, because I know Black men who gather every second Saturday and they have conversations with each other to affirm each other. So I think that would be a wonderful way for us to think about being in relationship with each other, so that we're not trying to point out what you're doing wrong, but we are lifting up, we are edifying you, we are speaking into your life, we are pouring into your soul the fact that we know that you were created as good, you were created by love, for love, and in love. Let me not use good or bad, but we were all created by love, for love, and in love, to be love in the world and to receive love from the world. That's what we were created to do. And we can't do that if we scared all the time. I cannot live my full life if every 5 minutes I'm checking to see if these hearing aids are in my ear. I've got to release the fear of losing it. If I lose it, I will get another one just like I've done before. So how do we release the fear that we have that God isn't one that we respect, but God is one that we are afraid of, that causes us to tremble, that causes us to jump back, that causes us to believe that we're not even worthy to be in the same room with God. And how does that even work? How does that even work, that we don't believe we're worthy of God's presence when we say that we have the Holy Spirit? Let's go back to where Arve said, Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. The knowledge of the Holy One gives me insight because it's present within me. It's guiding my intuition. It's that something that I talk about. Something told me not to go that way. That's the presence of the knowledge. That's knowledge in me telling me don't do this and don't do that. And that knowledge is supplied by the Holy Spirit who is in me. So how is it that I'm not worthy to be in God's presence when I am the presence? I think we have to pay attention to what we say and how we live. And that's what this conversation is about. How are we living what we talk about and what we believe? Yes, I've said this before, free your mind and the rest will follow. And what has our minds bound is our religion. And that's what I'm coming for tonight. We have to get to the point where we're saying, yeah, just like those of us who are independent Black women, we single. And if there's anybody that's single, I don't care if you're a woman or not, anybody that believes yourself to be independent and you call yourself single, have you ever heard yourself say something like this? I don't need no partner. I want somebody, but I don't want nobody to think I need them. I just want somebody. Right? I've said that more than once. I don't need you. I can do everything I need to do all by myself. And when I say everything, I mean everything. But I would love to be in relationship with you. I would love to journey with you. I would love to see the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the highs and lows of life together with you. I'd like to share in our successes and mourn in our sadness together. I would love to do that. But that don't mean I need you. Don't mean I can't function without you. It don't mean that something is wrong if you're not present. So when we talk about being in covenant relationship with God, when God says, I am yours and you are mine, this is a beautiful, loving relationship where we have our ebbs and flows together, but we're on a journey that leads to nothing but high. It leads to nothing but higher heights for us to climb. We might stumble and fall on the way, but we're together in this moment because we love each other and we are committed, not because we're scared. Some of us are in physical relationships where we're scared to tell the truth about the relationship because we don't want the person to walk away. So we're holding on to a lie. We're living a lie. We're pretending to the world that our household is all good and peachy keen when really it's not. Because we're no longer living in a relationship that's rooted and grounded in covenant, in love. We are operating out of fear. Don't leave me. If you leave me, I don't know what I'm going to do. If you leave me, how I'm going to take care of these children. If you leave me, I don't want to start over. All of this fear that we have. So how do we uproot this fear? And one of the ways that we deal with fear in our regular biological selves, not talking about the spiritual, but our regular biological selves, one of the ways we deal with fear is to remember that the fear is triggered by something that happened in the past. So because we know it happened before, our mind automatically goes back to that spot and says, okay, remember this. This is what you need to do. And so if we're going to apply this to our spiritual life, we go back to the past and remember. God made a way of escape out of that time. God will make a way of escape out of this time. I lost one of my hearing aids before and I replaced it. I lost both of my hearing aids again and I replaced them. Guess what's going to happen if I lose this hearing aid today? I'm going to get another one. What's going to happen if I lose both of them? I'm going to get two more. So what am I afraid of? I've been here before. There is a way out, and I'm going to fight or flight my way through it. But I won't be alone because I'll be in covenant relationship with somebody who's by my side to help me, not by my side to hurt me. Because I don't believe that if I went to God and said, I done lost this doggone hearing aid, the last thing I think God would say is, I told you you was going to lose that hearing aid. God would be like, it's okay. We're going to get another. And I'm gonna guide you to the how. I'm going to guide you to the resources. Trust me. Open up to hear me. So when I say this is the person, this is the path that you need to take to get these hearing aids, you'll be on your way. And so that's what I'm asking us to consider is that we don't want to live a faith where we're scared. Like, why do you want to scare me into loving God? Why do you want to scare me into loving anybody? And if we go back to the story of the audiologist, I want to scare you so that there's no responsibility on me. He wanted to make sure that whatever decision I made did not come back to bite him. He was like, I don't want you to walk out because I don't want anybody to say, I don't want it to be my decision. Because he was scared. He was scared of a lawsuit, scared of some kind of professional, how you say not courteous? Discourteous? Uncourteousness? Discourteousness? Because we offer things to people out of professional courtesy. So whatever the antonym of courteous is, would be not, but dis is also okay. So he was worried that he was not being professionally courteous, that he's got another colleague in another state and he's giving me different counsel, different advice. He's offering different solutions. He didn't want to be held responsible for that. So a lot of times I'm scaring you because I'm scared. So how do we all get free of the fear? Discourteous. All right, so use dis instead of un. Thank you, Susanna. And if anybody know these words, it's Susanna. Let me just tell you. Mama was an English teacher, didn't play about them words. Okay, now, discourteous. And so that's really where the fear came from. It wasn't my fear. He gave me his fear, and I received it. And so as we end tonight, I want to make sure that I'm giving us room to say, let's examine ourselves. I'm still writing on my list, y'all. Let's look at the parts of ourselves that are attractive and the parts of ourselves that are less attractive. And this fear that we're living in is less attractive. What would be more attractive is if we were bold and courageous enough to know that I've got the power to get through whatever it is I'm going through. And this fear that I have isn't mine anyway. Somebody else is scared of my blackness. Somebody else is scared of my boldness. Somebody else is scared of my knowledge. Somebody else is scared of my intelligence. Somebody else is scared of my gifts and my talents. This is not my fear, it's theirs. And I don't have to receive it into my body, and I doggone don't have to live into it. I think I'm talking to myself. I ain't finna reach for these hearing aids no more. And I'm hoping that we will not be guided by the fear of our relationship with God anymore. What would that look like if we worked to uproot that fear? That's the question that I'll leave you with tonight as we prepare to leave and get out of here for the good fight on this Tuesday, February 28th, last day of the month. Tomorrow is March 1st, y'all. We marching on. Thank you for joining us for the good fight. We will be live right back here on next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time to have more conversation at the intersection of faith and social justice. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.